Welcome, everybody. It is noon. Welcome to US Senate Toastmasters. It is a pleasure to welcome everybody to this 50th anniversary celebration of US Senate Toastmasters. We have been doing some wonderful things this year with this anniversary, including having guest speakers. So today I'm really thrilled that we're going to have a very renowned guest speaker that I think will add a lot to our meeting. And I'll have our toast leader of the day talk about his background and what he's going to bring to us. I just want to let everybody know we are recording this meeting. So if you want to change your name or stay off camera, or you're going to have lunch, or you're going to wander around, just go off camera. And that's fine, but we'd love for you to stay on camera so that we can support our speakers and give them a lot of support and love. And what we do in this club is we're going to have a word of the day. And when people use that word of the day, if you notice and you click, that's great. And for our speakers or anybody in a role, if you wave your hands in appreciation, that's wonderful. In general, keep your microphone on mute so we can hear what the presenters are saying. And we are a club that is very strong. We are a select distinguished club. So we have been around for 50 years. Select distinguished is an honor in Toastmasters. Last year we were select distinguished, and the year before we were president's distinguished. We're a club with 21 members, and we hope to continue to add more and grow. So now it is my honor to introduce our word of the day provider, Venus Griffin, a distinguished Toastmaster, a member of our club for many years, and also of New Vision Toastmasters. Venus, what's our word of the day?
I'm trying to unmute. Oh no. Hold on.
You unmuted. You unmuted. We can hear you.
I'm trying to unmute. And I'm about to zoom out.
We can hear you, Venus.
You can hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
It's saying mute on mine. Okay. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Today's word will be paradigm. Paradigm is a noun. Definitions: a standard, a typical example, or model of something. Used in a sentence: there is a new paradigm for public art in this country. Paradigm is the word of the day. I will put it in chat, and I hope you will find a way to use it in your speeches or talks today. And I'll turn it back over to Madam Toast Leader of the Day.
Thank you very much, Venus. And we use the word of the day to A, increase your vocabulary, and B, give you a speaking challenge. If there's a way to include that as you speak, we'll give you credit at the end of the meeting. Now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our toast leader of the day, Devaki Dave. Devaki has been a member of our club for many months now. She worked in the Senate as a constituent service representative in Nevada for a senator. Now she's with another senator, also from Nevada, where she is a fellow with the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies, APAC. She makes a wonderful grammarian because Deb used to be a teacher. So her speeches are thoughtful and profound, and she gives us really wonderful insights. So I'm thrilled to introduce our toast leader of the day, Devaki Dave.
Thank you so much, Carol, for that warm introduction. And I'm very excited to be part of Toastmasters this year. It's been a pleasure serving and joining and having that support for my speeches. And speaking of speeches today, we will have some speakers. And right before I introduce them, I'd like to mention that our word of the day provider, Venus, will also be serving as, I believe, our grammarian. And I know our timer of the day will be Esteban. I'd like to give them a moment to explain what they will be doing as timer and as grammarian. So if Venus, you could unmute yourself and let us know what the grammarian will be doing.
Looks like Venus dropped off.
Oh, no problem. Well, while we wait for Venus to rejoin, I'll briefly explain. So generally, the grammarian's role entails counting the number of pauses in our speech and really giving feedback to the speakers. So hopefully she'll be able to join and serve as grammarian as technology permits. And I believe Esteban is our timer. Esteban has been a member of our club, and he provides lots of support and encouragement for all of us. He's recently back from a trip, and we welcome him to serve as timer today.
Thank you. Greetings, Toast leaders. Following text I'm reading is from the toastmasters.org website. As timer, I will time the table topics. We won't have table topics today. The formal speeches and the evaluations. So I will time formal speeches and evaluations. I will also alert each speaker of the time they have left using the green, yellow, and red cards in my background, which denote specific times remaining. Those giving speeches will limit their remarks to specific speech times. And the first speech will be 5 to 7 minutes. And at 5 minutes, I will raise the green card. At 6 minutes, I will raise the yellow card. At 7 minutes, I will raise the red card. And the second speech will be 10 to 12 minutes. And I will again raise the green card at 10 minutes, yellow card at 11 minutes, and the red card at 12 minutes. Thank you very much, Madam Toast Leader.
Thank you so much, Esteban, for serving as timer. Now, our first speech of the day will be by our wonderful member, Dan, and the speech is entitled "The Judge, the General, and the Congressman." And Jennifer will be evaluating Dan's speech. So I will briefly introduce Daniel, give a brief bio, and then I will kick it over to Jennifer to talk about his speech. So Daniel Webster Jr. is from Alabama and is new to Washington, D.C. He's had a number of unique experiences in both government and private sectors, and he's learned a lot from leaders who have left a lasting impression on him. And he hopes to have this opportunity in Toastmasters to serve and use his experience, knowledge, and wisdom to help others reach their full potential. We're super happy he's a new member of our club. He provided an awesome first icebreaker speech at our last meeting, and we got to learn that he pursues truth, has respect for law enforcement, and he's benefited from the legacy and lessons of his grandfather. Next, I will kick it over to Jennifer, the evaluator of Dan's speech, the judge, the general, and the congressman.
Thank you, Toast leaders. Good afternoon, everyone. So Daniel is giving a speech on the judge, the general, and congressman. And this is part of his Dynamic Speakers project, where he will be talking about, he's on lesson 2 of that, where he will be talking about learning your style. So basically, he said the goal of this speech is to show how the communication style, to show how he recognizes his communication style and how it impacts his interaction with others. The purpose of the overall understanding your communication style is first for members to learn about the different communication styles and identify his or her primary style. And the purpose of this speech is for Dan to share the impact of his communication style on others, but for the sake of the angle he's taking, he's going to talk about how the communication style of others is impacting his. Thank you. Over to you, Dan.
Madam Toast Leader, fellow Toast leaders, distinguished friends, and honored guests. A famous American born in Pike County, Alabama, once said, "You cannot be afraid to speak up and speak out for what you believe. You have to have courage, raw courage." That famous American was none other than Congressman John Lewis. As a young adult, I too witnessed things going on in my home state of Alabama that motivated and called me to action. But in order to speak up and speak out, I felt as though I needed formal education and professional training to adequately make an impact. You see, Raw courage is the adrenaline that gets you to the stage, but it takes something more to deliver a message that resonates with substance and style. I used to think the great speakers were born and not made, but that is not the case. Throughout my personal and professional journey, I've witnessed normal people who have perfectly perfected extraordinary speaking styles to become paradigm shifters. These men, who I will refer to as the judge, the general, and the congressman, are not world renowned, but in the great state of Alabama, they have made their own marks on history. The first speaker with extraordinary style that I've witnessed firsthand was a former Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. Here is a man who started as a lower court judge and through his oratorical prowess climbed up the ladder all the way to the Supreme Court of Alabama. Although he had a natural ability to memorize large portions of written material, his speaking style was perfectly perfected such that he could captivate an audience utilizing a direct speaking style that conveyed power and conviction. While serving as judge, he won most of his elections by a landslide. What I learned from the judge is to speak up and speak out with passion, because people tend to remember those speakers who are not afraid to show passion. During the same period that I worked under the leadership of the Chief Justice, I was also serving as a captain in the Alabama Army National Guard. In this capacity, I spent my weekends at the rank of captain, serving as aide de camp for the second speaker, who happened to be the Adjutant General of the Alabama National Guard. This wasn't just any old regular Army general. This was the very first African-American general in the history of Alabama. The general was appointed by the governor of Alabama to command all Army and Air National Guard personnel and weapon systems in the state. When I first learned the general had selected me to serve as his aide, I didn't know exactly what to expect, but I knew one thing for sure: whether I liked it or not, I was going to spend a hell of a lot of quality time with the living legend, and that I was going to witness firsthand a very unique speaking style. After all, this two-star general was approximately 6'6" and was about to travel the state delivering speeches to some audiences that weren't always going to be receptive. However, I quickly learned that my general had perfectly perfected a speaking style that was altogether different than what I'd grown accustomed to. Whereas the judge spoke with power and conviction, employing passion to seize the day, my general used humility and compassion that never failed to save the day. Two very contrasting styles, both were equally impactful. I learned from the general that a supportive communication style is calm, steady, approachable, and sincere. What the general reiterated to me is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Shortly after leaving the judge and the general, I spent the next 2 years working for the third speaker, who was a newly elected first-term Alabama congressman. Just when I thought I'd seen and heard it all, the congressman exposed me to a few new techniques, which I still have not quite figured out to this day. I traveled to different parts of his district with him and witnessed the congressman speak to diverse audiences. On many occasions, I heard him speak to groups of people that I am 100% certain previously had not voted for him. But after he would speak, to my surprise, that very same group would give him a standing ovation. I never witnessed him engage a crowd he couldn't touch. How could this be? How can you change someone's mind in a matter of minutes just by delivering a few words on cue and without notes? Over a period of time, I learned the congressman's secret sauce was really no secret at all. He was simply being genuine and authentic when he spoke. Unlike the judge or the general who rarely used notes, the congressman never used notes because he always spoke from his heart. The congressman articulated care and concern for the same issues that his constituents felt were important to them. He is always careful to underpromise and overdeliver. For nearly 20 years, his speaking style still resonates with the people of Alabama and with me. He taught me that if I focus more on connecting with my audience than trying to deliver sound bites, there's a greater likelihood people will see me as being genuine and authentic. From my experience with the judge, the general, and the congressman, I will say that all were supreme communicators, but with vastly different speaking styles. I caution you that finding your own unique speaking style requires patience and practice. There are some basic rules one must follow, but for the most part, you're free to develop your own special product. This is one safe space where it really doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, Black or white, liberal or conservative. If you work at the craft, you will not be afraid to speak up and speak out for what you believe. Madam Toast Leader, I yield the balance of my time.
That was amazing. I see lots of folks showing jazz hands and applause, and again, blown away by a wonderful and engaging and thoughtful speech by Dan. I'm just, oh wow, it's so inspiring to hear you every time I hear you. And I think I really resonated with the lessons that you're learned from the judge, the general, the congressman. I will give members about 15-20 seconds to gather thoughts and feedback on Dan's speech and directly message him in the chat box. Please take some time to do that now. Okay, thank you so much, Dan. That was amazing. Next, I will introduce our guest speaker for the day, Michael Franklin. Today, he will be speaking, and his speech is entitled Unicorn with Guitar. Michael Franklin is the co-founder of Speechwriters of Color and owner of Words Normalize Behavior and a communications associate at Black Futures Lab. He's a graduate of Howard University, and his expertise centers around bringing people together and helping others tell their stories through coalition building, outreach, and inclusive communication practices. Michael's previously worked with the Collective PAC, Fenway Strategies, and even the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. His words have been quoted or heard or seen in so many media outlets, including BBC News, the Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, and many, many more outlets. Michael Franklin was also a Toastmaster member during his time when he served at the Federal Reserve Bank in Kansas City, which is very exciting to see how many Toastmasters go on to produce amazing, amazing work in their communities and in their fields. And without further ado, Michael Franklin, everybody.
Thank you all so much for having me today. First, good afternoon and happy Friday, everyone. It's great to be out here, great to be before you all. And of course, I want to give a special thanks to Carol for inviting me here today to address the Toastmasters group. And also, I want to give a special thanks to Trudy Hall, one of my first supervisors who introduced me to Toastmasters at the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City nearly 5 years ago. Now, for me, in middle school, I started my career in competitive speech and debate at the urging of my mother because I love to talk, I love to argue, and she said I had a smart mouth. While she was right about all three of those things, who knew that years later, I would become so at home, not only in public speaking, but also learning so much from the professional speech and debate space. That not only built threads and through lines to things like professional speech writing, but it also provided me with an opportunity to learn how to use my voice and advocate for change in a variety of spaces wherever I might be. It was meeting people like Janet Stovall, who are not common at all in the field of speech writing because she is both Black and a woman. And she often would say that she was a unicorn within the industry. But as I began spending time with more and more speechwriters, I was provided with an opportunity to present in a room full of speechwriters. And Janet inspired the beginning of my remarks because Janet always says that she's a unicorn. But I'm a unicorn with glitter because I'm Black and I'm queer. And while the remark received claps and chuckles throughout the room, sometimes insecurity and internal fears of my own identity caused me to second guess the positivity of those responses, especially when a majority of the audience was a crowd of folks that didn't look like me. However, over those claps and chuckles was a Black queer woman, Cheryl Clark, who yelled, "Hey, there's two of us in here. There are two unicorns with glitter." And in that moment, not only did I feel a bit more at home, but it was a reminder that public speaking has always held an important role in my life. Being in front of audiences has provided me with ample opportunities to speak before audiences of various backgrounds who might not be in tune with the experiences I face due to the various facets of my identity. My identities that create an opportunity to leverage who I am to create a better world for people who share components of my identity. Speaking has taught me about advocating for myself and using my voice as a tool to represent myself in a variety of different arenas. Learning how to speak and advocate for myself became the glue of how I began to understand myself. Because by articulating who I am to others, I was able to understand more about who I am and how my identity can establish and represent itself as an empowering entity for myself and others. So, being this unicorn with glitter, I think it's best that I tell this story through 3 anecdotes. Because first, I'll reflect on my childhood experience of watching and supporting people that look like me and living life as a baby unicorn. Next, I'll describe the learning experiences as I grew up and began to understand the intersections of advocacy and my individual agency. And finally, I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of glitter on it as I've continued to do this type of work to have a positive impact for others. So growing up, I was taught early on that there was always a kinship amongst people who have similar identities. As a child, I often pondered why that might be. Sometimes it would be my grandma telling me to root for the Black people that were on Wheel of Fortune when we were watching TV together. Sometimes it would be the excitement in finding another Black family on the 1880 census when we were conducting research on Ancestry.com. Sometimes the kinship could be like the experience I had with Cheryl at the conference, being the only 2 Black and queer folks in a room filled to the brim with people. An author, Paula McLean's interpretation for group consciousness emphasizes that the political beliefs within one's consciousness can take the form of feeling of solidarity among group members. The people on Wheel of Fortune are people that I would never meet and were not people that I personally knew as a family, but there was a feeling of community through the TV screen simply because you were seeing someone that looked like you. Having this unconsciously instilled in me throughout my upbringing presented the opportunity for me to fall in love with the habit of being okay with supporting people who looked like me, because we might face maltreatment in society simply due to the identity that was inscribed upon our skin. While Wheel of Fortune was an innocuous experience that helped teach me how to spell and learn a laundry list of new words, and how to this day, I still use RSTLNE to help me with my daily Wordle, it's important that it shows that the summer after my sophomore year of high school, that I began to understand the direct political agency my identity could manifest. While I was not comfortable or fully in tune with my queerness completely, I was provided with an opportunity and environment that helped cultivate opportunities for me to gain enlightenment to the fluidity, power, and importance of my identity. That summer, I attended the Eddie Conway Liberation Institute in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, ECLI was something amazing in itself because little do many know, there are things called debate camps where they teach you and that you pay to go for a summer to learn about debate, learn how to learn your skills, and you learn opportunities to read more literature to get you ready for that next season. Now, these camps are extremely expensive, and my family always had money being tight. So I couldn't fund that. I couldn't pay $1,000+ to travel across the country from Kansas City for a debate camp. But luckily, debate camp scholarships actually existed. And so I was able to Google and find some opportunities to ensure that I could receive the chance to attend the debate camp. And while this was my first time flying across country, it seemed like it was going to be not only a life-changing experience, but it taught me really how to not only sharpen my debate skills, but to become a lot more comfortable in my own skin. I also attended ECLI the summer after Freddie Gray was murdered by Baltimore police officers. And growing up, I had experienced the reverberative impact of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown being murdered by vigilantes who had acted without regard for young Black lives. However, being in the community that was directly impacted by the premature and preventable loss of one of their own put life into perspective for me, because it could easily be me or my friends back home, or even my family within the community. And being at ECLI, beforehand, I had participated in protests, and I vividly remember a walkout in middle school where we wore hoodies in support of Trayvon Martin. And while I knew their deaths were wrong, unjust, and unacceptable, I didn't have the vocabulary to quite articulate why they felt so wrong. And I had trouble why they felt so heartbreaking or tragic and infuriating. But ECLI taught me a paradigm and a praxis that allowed me to help understand that these were not simply visceral emotional reactions towards Black death, but my reactions were just, human, and right. ECLI created an environment that helped me develop an understanding of my body and my identity in order to have a summer experience that taught me that my body mattered and that my agency was worthwhile and that using my voice could positively impact countless other people. Despite that, all of these years in which I have spent time in the debate space, I was often told that you can't go pro in debate, and that once you finished up with school, that would be it, and that you could use those skills elsewhere. However, my sophomore year in college, meeting amazing speechwriters like Janet Stovall or Cheryl Clark helped me realize that yes, you can go pro in debate, and that there is a lane in which you can get involved, because speechwriting was a profession that provided an opportunity for lots of folks to get involved. Now, for me, despite these years in debate, speechwriting was never mentioned as a profession. We didn't have professional speechwriters judging debate rounds or providing feedback or critique on our speeches. But little did I learn, there's a whole community out here that are writing for leaders in every industry we're a part of, whether they're writing for government officials, whether they're writing for nonprofit leaders, corporate CEOs, athletes, your favorite celebrities, whether it's speeches, op-eds, video scripts, you name it. Everybody and their mama has a speechwriter. And trying to find a way to help that lane meant a lot to me, because being in a room where there weren't many folks that looked like me, I wanted to make sure that I opened the door for others to be a part of this world of speechwriting. I wanted to open the door to make sure that because I was able to get in through the door and slip through the cracks, I wanted to bust that door off its hinges to provide an opportunity for other folks to understand and raise awareness that not only was this a profession for folks, but this was an opportunity for folks to make change and to impact leaders across every sector. And that's why I organized and hosted the first ever Black Speechwriter Symposium at Howard University back in 2019. And this was an opportunity where I brought many superstars from a varying speechwriting fields, whether they were working in nonprofit, whether they were working in corporate or politics, or even running their own speechwriting firm. And I was able to work alongside them to talk about their experiences to students, to raise awareness about professional speech writing. And in doing so, it not only provided an impact for varying speech writing firms to see that this is important work that needs to be done, but it also opened the door for students to look for these internships and for these organizations to show up to our career fairs and simply to let folks know that this is a path that you can take. Because many speechwriters often fall into the field. There's not a direct path for speech writing, whether they might be a journalist, whether they might have been an English major, political science major, or like me, a legal communications major. There's so many different ways in which you can get into speech writing. And I want to make sure that professional speech writing looks representative of our country that we live in, because when you're a leader, you're speaking to a wide variety of audiences, and you have a duty to connect with those audiences. And the only way you can do that is if you surround yourself with folks who have different lived experiences and are able to have different opportunities to share their words, to share their insight, and to share their wisdom that can help shape your paradigm for what you're going to do as a leader and what you're going to say as someone that's a leader. That's why in October 2020, I was proud to co-found and launch Speechwriters of Color. And to this day, we've grown as an organization. In less than 2 years old, we have nearly 400 members of our organization. We've helped folks get political appointments writing for cabinet secretaries, and we've worked with folks to write for different corporate CEOs, nonprofits, you name it. But of course, the work is just beginning, and there's a lot of work to being done. But all I know is that for me, while I started as that baby unicorn with glitter in those speech writing spaces, not knowing much and entering the world as just a speech and debate competitor, I'm now proud to say that I continue to shine. And I tell you, that glitter just keeps getting brighter. Thank you, y'all.
I see everyone giving double and triple applause and jazz hands. That was a phenomenal, opportunity to get to hear you speak, Michael. Thank you so much for sharing. I know a lot of us can identify growing up with Wheel of Fortune and getting those letters. I personally also use the RSTLNE, so amazing. So inspiring to hear you speak and to hear how you're opening paths for the next generation of students so that they can have that connection into the field. It's amazing. Thank you for serving as our guest speaker today and for the incredible work you've done and you continue to do to really open doors for more folks to be able to tell their stories. Again, a second round of applause. Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce our new member, Felicia Lampion. She's going to lead some discussion, question, and answer session for us. So Felicia, you're up next.
Thank you so very much. Good afternoon to all my fellow Toastmaster colleagues and guests. Thank you so very much, Michael Franklin, for sharing. Thank you for serving as that beacon of hope and bridging the gap for the next generation to come. I really enjoyed your speech. At this time, we'll have our question and answering session. If you have a question, will you please raise your hand and be identified at this time? Daniel Webster Jr., you have the mic. No, I'm sorry. Friedman. Margaret Friedman, you have the mic.
I'm new. Do we just put it in chat or do we actually speak?
You can speak.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I want to thank Carol for inviting Michael. That was just gave me so much energy to just feel Michael's spirit coming through so powerfully and so putting me on a high for Friday afternoon. Michael, I formed a group called Progressive Communicators of Washington, D.C., which is just social media people, media relations people, some speechwriters, et cetera. We have about 2,000 members. And it's all just free and networking and stuff. And so I understand the power of groups and like-minded groups. The question I want to ask you is, you have such a powerful spirit and powerful presence and personality. And when you write for someone else, you're getting into their head, you're ghostwriting, you're becoming them, right? So I wondered if you could give us some tips for ghostwriting and getting the voice of your speaker. Thank you.
Absolutely. And first, I definitely want to learn more about your group that you've established, because I think building community is so important. So outside of this call, definitely want to find some time to connect, just to learn and see what ways we can get involved, collaborate, because that's what it's about. Like, you got to be a different type to get into communications work too. So I totally understand. In terms of some advice for ghostwriting and helping get inside the head of a principal, I always say that you really want to get to know who you're working with personally. You want to go beyond just the typical communications questions of who's the audience for this speech, what do you want to say, but rather you want to understand what makes your principal tick. So you want to learn about those formative background stories, like what helped shape them as the leader or the principal that they are today. What's the time that they failed and they learned something from it? And these are always some of the fundamental formative questions I love to ask principals when I first meet them, because then I can jot those down and have my own story bank. And then they'll be shocked when I mention one of those stories they mentioned in a draft for a speech. And they're like, oh, like, I completely forgot I told you that. But yeah, I would have thought of that. That fits perfect telling the story right here. And once you have a good story bank, you can just keep going to the well. And so I always encourage to push and to just fight with folks to really be able to have an opportunity to have that FaceTime with your principal, to get that advice and that information early on when you first start working with the principal too.
Thank you so very much. I'll remember that. Continue to go to the well. Our next question will come from our president, Carol.
Thank you, Felicia. And Michael, thank you so much for an amazing, thoughtful, thought-provoking speech about your journey. Do you think speechwriters can do a good job if they don't give speeches themselves?
I do. And like, I'm one of the rare ones in terms of a speechwriter that has experience giving speeches. And so it gives me a different opportunity to provide some of that direct coaching input. But I think folks that don't give speeches can provide that insight, just because all it takes is a lot of good studying and research and getting to know some of those broader communications tactics and strategies. But I will say I'm a bit biased in thinking if you have that speaking experience, then it gives you a little bit of a leg up, because you have the opportunity to really help folks with the delivery. And for me, I'm always able to work with principals, or I'll add notes in drafts where it's like, this is where you should pause for applause. You should emphasize saying this word or this line because it'll have a special impact. And trust me, because I speak, I know like where you need to emphasize that too. And so it helps provide good advice, but I think nonetheless, you can definitely still help folks out and be a great speechwriter, even without the public speaking experience.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. Our next question will come from another great speaker that I know very well, Daniel Webster Jr. Please go ahead.
Oh,
I can't hear you, Daniel.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you guys didn't hear that opening there. So Michael, the question I have for you is, in the Deep South, we're known for leading the nation in football and other athletic types of activities. It's something that I recognized a long time ago, is that we're not leading the nation when it comes to speaking, public speaking, oratory skills. What I've been toying with for some time is starting a debate league in the Mississippi Delta. I like the fact that you shared with us how your debate experience kind of led you into the public speaking space. Do you have any advice that you can share with Felicia and I as we move forward toward establishing some type of debate league down in Deep South Mississippi?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of really good debate infrastructure for like the high school and middle school spaces. So I recommend reaching out to the National Association of Urban Debate Leagues, because they do a lot of work in helping set up leagues for schools that might not have the funding. And they also tend to have a strong alumni base of volunteer coaches who will be a part of it. I'd also recommend reaching out to the National HBCU Speech and Debate League, because there's likely a lot of colleges and HBCUs that would be willing to support local high schools and building up debate leagues too. And then the National Speech and Debate Association is the larger national speech and debate association for middle and high schoolers. And they've been growing a lot, especially as they've continued their efforts for expanding leagues and competition opportunities for students. And also I have a good friend who was a debate partner of mine my freshman year at Howard, who's from Mississippi actually, and was hoping to like work, I believe it was in Jackson, and like with the Board of Education to like help establish some debate leagues. So I think she actually works in the Senate now too, ironically enough. So definitely we'll have to connect y'all and like just see like what y'all can do, what y'all can cook up for some fun stuff. And of course, I'm happy to be a resource along the way too.
Thank you so very much for sharing that very helpful information. Our last question will come from Elisa. Please go ahead.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Michael, for a really great, inspiring speech. Kind of thinking back to the first speech we had today about the judge, the general, and the congressman, I was wondering if you had advice about sort of how to write for and coach different personality types for a speech. So do you kind of, to what extent do you sort of go with their natural, like predominant style, and to what extent do you try to like work with them to pull out some of that sort of genuine connection? How much is like just general good speaking, and how much is kind of like, bringing out what people may not be using as strongly in their speaking. Thanks.
Oh yeah. So I definitely think like a part of the authenticity is just going with someone's natural speaking style, and by being able to help massage that and help them really become comfortable in their own skin. Like for me, I'm always going to like have some jokes, a little bit of shorthand, a little bit of AAVE too, because I'm not big on like always being super stuffy, super formal. And so you want to really work with your principal to see what they're really comfortable with, what helps make your speaker. And so by being able to help build those as some of the strongest skills that can really help out and showing authenticity, because you don't want to try and mold them into something they're not. And by being able to really help them go in on who they are as a speaker and some of the things they like to say, then it will resonate with an audience where it's like, oh, this is them. Like, this is what they like to say. This is how they say it. And like, it's not someone just pulling the strings behind them a little too much. Though, of course, as a good speechwriter, you hope that you're able to be a thought partner and like actually work with them and be able to pitch ideas back and forth with them rather than just being a scribe and just writing down whatever they're saying.
Thank you so very much, Michael Franklin, for sharing. We've really enjoyed those amazing questions. At this time, this is the end of our question and answer session, and we're going to turn it back over to our toast leader of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those were amazing questions, and thank you, Mike, for taking the time and to be with us and answer our questions. I'm really excited to see. I know Daniel's got some exciting ideas and plans in the mix in the future, so hope this has served as a great springboard for ideas for all of us to get involved in whatever capacities we can when it comes to inspiring folks around us to tell their stories. Next, I'd like to introduce our general evaluator, Allison, who will be introducing Jennifer, and Jennifer will evaluate Dan's speech. So Allison, please unmute yourself and introduce Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Toastmasters. I will be introducing Jennifer. She's a communications professional based in the DMV area. For the past 5 years, she has worked as a communication specialist at the World Bank Group. She is the author of 3 books, and her goal for joining the US Senate Toastmasters Club is to practice and improve her communications and leadership skills while broadening her horizon through challenging and fulfilling learning experiences.
Thank you, General Evaluator. Fellow Toast leaders, I am going to give a brief summary of my evaluation for Daniel's speech. In the areas that you excelled while presenting your speech or while giving your speech, I picked 2 areas. The one is the topic, and the second one is the vocal variety. In terms of the topic, you actually delivered as promised. You set your objectives as showing or telling us how the communication style of the judge, the general, and the congressman, it impacted your own communication style. And that was exactly what you did by taking us through their own journey. You used the powerful storytelling style and you made it very easy for us to follow and visualize. For example, when you described the judge as someone whose communication style is of power and conviction to seize the moment. And then of the general of the Alabama National Guard, you said of him that he uses humility and passion to save the day. While of the Alabama congressman, you said his own communication style exposed you to the technique of connecting with audience so that you can show them that you are sincere and authentic. I thought those like powerful description helped me as one of like a member of your audience visualize what these three men stood for in terms of their communication style. So those that area you really excelled at. And then in terms of vocal variety, you started with such a force. You know, if this was a hall, anybody who was taking a nap would probably be jolted to wake up. I thought the powerful start was incredible. And then you maintained that high energy throughout the course of your speech. There was no moment of, you know, like zoning out or anything. So I really want to encourage you to keep up that high energy for future speech as well. And then you made use of the good tone of voice and then the pace. Even though we're in a virtual setting, I saw you a few times gesture, you know, to emphasize a point. And all of this kind of as an audience, I was able to follow, you know, the journey and really stay engaged. The areas you might want to work on, it was hard to pick because I thought your speech was very powerful. I would say you had like a great beginning, you had a great flow, you know, beginning, middle, and ending. The powerful description that helped us as your audience visualize the journey as you told about the communication style of these three leaders. Perhaps you might want to challenge yourself in the area of ending because I thought it ended too abruptly. Or maybe it was just me like so fascinated by the content of your speech that I was looking for more. So in a situation whereby your speech is so powerful, you might want to like look for a more subtle ending that would help your audience find a closure. For example, you could think of a way to engage your audience by asking them a question, you know? So these three men, their communication style impacted mine. Who are the three people who are the leaders whose communication style has impacted you as well? Just something to leave, you know, your audience with so that they're not left in a state of shock. That speech was so powerful, but I wanted more, you know? So I will be sending more at the end of this via email, but that's all for now. Thank you. Over to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, we will have our grammarian's report by Venus.
Thank you so much. And I apologize for my technical difficulty in the very beginning, and I missed Daniel's speech completely, but I did have a backup to let me know what Daniel did. So Carol gave me the information on Daniel that he had no verbal pauses and he had great language comparing seizing the day and saving the day. The way he used that was very good. I'm sorry I missed that, Daniel. Dev, as Toastmaster today, I have a couple of R's for you, and so is your crutch word, as it is with me as well. Michael, you had a great speech. I was so happy I was able to get into your entire speech. I thought you did a great job. I couldn't catch any ums and ahs from you per se, but you do have some clutch words like and a few of those, like I didn't count them all, but they're your clutch words. But I was very happy that you did use the word of the day. Thank you so much, Daniel, for using the word of the day, paradigm. For those who came in late, I did give the word of the day and then I was zoomed out. Felicia, for question and answer, you did a great job. I just caught one off from you somewhere along the line. I hope I can stay up long enough to give this out. For the people who answered questions, Margot, do I have that right, Margaret? Yes, you just had a couple of R's. I thought you did a great job with asking questions for Michael. Carol, I didn't catch any through your questions, nor with Dan or Elisa. Allison, great job as general evaluator. I didn't catch anything. Jennifer, I caught when you giving your summary and evaluation. I caught an about 3 R's, and so is your crutch word. And that is my report. Mr. General Evaluator.
Next, we will have our timers report by Esteban.
Thank you very much. The first speech we had was 7 minutes and 35 seconds. The second speech was 11 minutes and 52 seconds. And the speech evaluation was 3 minutes and 35 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Esteban. I will give my general evaluation now. I thought that both speeches were very inspirational. I enjoyed hearing the use of the word paradigm in everyone's speeches and also in the chat. I thought that was awesome. I wanted to speak out on several of what Daniel's points were and giving us inspiration that we can take for our speeches in the future. It was about talking with passion, speaking with humanity and compassion, and being genuine and authentic. I really enjoyed Michael's speech because he was all about the glitter. I think sprinkling glitter for everyone is something that everyone can think of and also grasp that. And everyone's evaluations have been incredible also. I think today has been a great meeting and I'm inspired to go on and write some speeches after this. I yield the floor back.
I think it goes back to Deb.
Thank you so much for that wonderful evaluation. I believe, and our grammarian's report. I believe next up we have timers report coming Esteban. Nope, I apologize.
Yep, back to me. Just say your closing and back to me.
Oh, I apologize. Back to our president. Oh, there goes my dog. He's correcting me too. He knows I broke agenda.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you for serving as Toast Leader of the Day. This is your second time doing it. We made you do it back to back, and you're definitely comfortable, supportive, thoughtful. You just did a wonderful job. I want to thank everybody who played a role at today's phenomenal Toast Leaders meeting. This is US Senate Toastmasters 50th year. We are trying to build up to be one of the strongest clubs in the district, which we are, right, Bonnie? And we have some really great speakers and really polished presenters, and we're all growing. And especially I want to thank Daniel, who has now given 2 speeches in a row, and just loved the juxtaposition of the different paradigms of 3 different approaches to speeches. And Michael, thank you so much for being our guest. It's wonderful to bring in folks with a unique perspective on your life story and your career and how they intersect and how they show up with leadership and policy and speech writing. And I just wondered if you had any closing words for us after being a member of our club for today.
I think the only words were y'all are running a great operation over here, like very fun, very great, very organized Toastmasters club. And y'all got a lot of really cool, great members on tap too. And I also just want to make sure that I'm accessible to folks. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Carol, please feel free to share like my contact info. Like I'd love to connect with y'all and just happy to bring y'all in. Especially if you want to be a member of Speechwriters of Color, member or ally, you can just check out speechwritersofcolor.com too. But I appreciate the invite and having me. And I enjoyed this a lot too. And I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I did.
Right. Thank you so much, Michael, for coming. We have Alicia. I didn't know if you wanted to say something as a guest. Then we will, our next meeting is August 12th at noon. Is this meeting, we're going to do our new member induction ceremony and our officers induction. So, which is exciting. It's the new Toastmaster year. So I wondered if we had a volunteer to be the Toast leader for that meeting in 2 weeks. We definitely don't want to make Deb do it for the third time in a row. Any volunteers? Well, let us know. We have also room for another speech, so do let me know there. Bonnie, is there any news from the district you would like to share?
For those officers, there is a officer training available tomorrow, starting, I believe, at 10:30 in the morning. The district website, district36.org/TLI, will give you the other dates. Anyone can attend a TLI, and if you attend, you're learning how to be that officer. So that can help you help that officer if you're not an officially named office in that position, because we want to build out our committees and actually help each other do the work of the club, publicize the club, help get the agendas filled in, et cetera, et cetera. There are often electives, what we call electives in District 36, where you learn about a topic. You're not learning about the specific office position, but you're learning a topic, evaluation, how to be a Zoom master, etc. Those are on specific dates. They are on the web page as well. So I mentioned that. One other thing is that the annual convention is in Nashville. The theme is storytellers, and you can register for the convention virtually. There's a free option which will give you access to some events. The virtual cost, if you want to go to more events, and I think the educational presentations are with cost, about $45, don't quote me. The reason why I bring up the convention is because when you attend in person, which is what I'll be planning to do, you really meet international Toastmasters, which we're getting as well with our virtual world. But the annual event is the business meeting. We elect the board of directors, and we also have a number of proposals, changes to the bylaws that the clubs will vote on. And this club will have 2 votes. We need to know what our members want us to do. And I anticipate that I can be the delegate for the club to vote. So I bring it up for our awareness. All right. Back to you, Carol.
Bonnie. Thank you so much. We do have another guest. Marco, would you like to share your thoughts on our meeting?
Thanks, Carol. Thanks for inviting me. I thought this was a wonderful meeting. I think it's really great to see all different kinds of people come together and grow together and to be so supportive of each other's professional development. I can't think of many other spaces where that happens. So it's just wonderful to see.
Well, thank you, Margot. I'm thrilled you're here. Good luck with Progressive Communicators of DC. I know they've been very successful. So our next meeting, August 12th, Elisa has sent me a text that she said she will be our toast leader of the day. So that's wonderful. We do have 1 speaking role available. We'll need someone to lead the induction ceremony. So do reach out, sign up on our website. Michael, again, thank you so much for being our guest speaker, giving us an excuse to reach out and let people know about the club. We'll send everybody the link to this meeting. We're going to break it up into chunks. So Michael, feel free to, you can use it for your purposes. I know I do a lot of references for people looking for jobs, and having your video available to say, oh yeah, I have a lot of public speaking. I've led webinars. I've done this and that. And, you can give them the links because we have a YouTube page, thanks to our president emeritus, Betsy. So we've got our Facebook page, we have our YouTube page, we have our free Toast US Senate Toastmasters page. So we would love to welcome you, have you participate as a guest, and then have you join as a member. So I'm going to gavel us out now. Feel free to stick around if you have questions, or Michael, if people have questions for you, that's wonderful. And Felicia, you are going to be given a speech next meeting.